Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are examining the disappearance of Rachel Louise Cooke. Born on May the 10th, 1982, she would have been 42 years old today. Rachel grew up in Georgetown, Texas, a city in Williamson County that has seen some huge growth over the years. In 2002, the population was around 30,000. Today it's tripled in size. As the first child of Robert and Janet Cooke, Rachel was later joined by her younger sister, Joanne. Robert was a software engineer and Janet was a teacher at Georgetown High School. The Cookes lived in a secluded ranch-style home in the North Lake subdivision, about 30 miles north of Austin. This peaceful area featured spacious properties set far back from the road, creating a sense of isolation despite nearby neighbours. The tranquility of North Lake was just what the Cookes had envisioned, and at the time especially with its low crime rate. Bad things rarely happened here. Rachel was a bright, joyful and caring young woman, known for her great sense of humour that kept her friends laughing. She was active, she was very sporty. She enjoyed long distance track and cross country during high school. And her love of running continued into her late teens. She typically went for 4 to 6 mile jogs every day. At 19, Rachel was attending San Diego as a community college, which is in California. She was working diligently towards a 2-year introductory degree. Her ultimate goal was to pursue a career in fashion, with plans to enroll in a fashion design program after completing her studies. At college, she also met a new boyfriend, Greg. The pair were so serious about each other that she brought him home for the holidays. And this would have been around Christmas time of 2001. Initially, they were supposed to be returning back to California together, but Rachel changed her mind because of her cousin's imminent wedding. She decided to stay on into the new year boyfriend Greg only stayed for a week with the Cookes before returning to California to celebrate Christmas with his own family. It is said Rachel believed Greg was the one, and that she was incredibly happy. At the time, she was even considering transferring to a college in LA to pursue fashion design instead of continuing her studies in San Diego. She and Greg had also made plans to move in together once they were both back in California. Friends speculated that she was hoping for an engagement when the school year ended. A lot of great things were on the horizon for her. However, things took a devastating turn early in the new year. We're talking specifically on the morning of January the 10th, 2002. It began like any typical Thursday. Parents Robert and Janet set off for work. Her younger sister Joanne went to high school. Rachel was left asleep on the sofa. The plan was for Rachel to go with her dad dress shopping for her outfit to attend the upcoming wedding once Robert, her dad, got back from work that afternoon. When he returned home, it was around 3 p.m. and he arrived expecting to take Rachel clothes shopping. Only she was nowhere to be found. He thought it was a bit strange. She wasn't waiting for him, as they'd made firm plans. But he didn't immediately worry. He figured maybe a friend of hers had passed by and picked her up, and Rachel had simply forgotten to let him know. He knew that she was planning to go out later in the evening, but then he noticed Rachel's phone and her purse were at home, and that made it completely out of character for her. It really concerned him, and there was no way that Rachel would leave without taking these things with her anywhere. So he rang Rachel's friend, Shannon, to check if she was with her. Shannon said she wasn't. In fact, Shannon hadn't heard from Rachel all day. His concern starting to grow, Robert then called the restaurant Wildfire where she occasionally picked up extra shifts when she was home. At first, there was a sense of relief when the person who answered the phone confirmed that Rachel was working that evening. But it wasn't long before they realised it was a case of mistaken identity, because there were two Rachels who worked at the restaurant, and it wasn't his daughter who had taken the shift, but someone completely different. And once Janet, Rachel's mum, got home from work, the parents searched through Rachel's belongings for any clues, and they worked out that the items that were missing were her running gear, her Walkman, which she always wore on her arm with headphones, and this led them to believe that Rachel had likely gone out for a run and hadn't returned. And they grew alarmed as they realised that something bad had obviously happened, because her runs typically lasted no longer than an hour and a half. The fact that she'd been gone for 12 hours was deeply troubling. They feared she might have been hurt somewhere along her route. Maybe she'd fallen or had an accident. Robert went and searched for Rachel along her running path, looking for any trace of her. Her mother drove to the general hospital to ask if any unidentified women had been admitted. They had yet to involve the police, because they thought that they needed to wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report. Rachel was officially reported missing on Friday the 11th of January, but the investigation began frustratingly slowly. The sheriff at the time delayed taking action, assuming Rachel would likely reappear on her own, with minimal support from law enforcement. Rachel's family mobilized everyone they knew to search for her. An official from the Texas Rangers eventually learned of Rachel's disappearance and organized a formal search, collaborating with the volunteer group Texas Search and Recovery Organization. Despite extensive efforts, no one could find a single trace of Rachel. The search continued through the weekend and into Monday before it was eventually called off. Robert vowed to keep searching, and he never did give up. So while at the time the physical search concluded, the investigation had just begun. police officers conducted a door-to-door canvass of the neighbourhood, asking residents if they had seen Rachel during her morning run. Although many lived a considerable distance away, several individuals reported seeing her. By this point, the police had already spoken to Greg, the boyfriend, who had immediately flown back to Texas after learning of Rachel's disappearance. He explained that he had called her that morning. He'd woken her up, and Rachel had told him that she planned to go for a run and she would call him back afterwards, but never did. Phone records confirmed their conversation ended at 9:15 a.m., suggesting that she left for her run shortly afterwards. At approximately 10 a.m., a couple out walking noticed a girl they believed to be Rachel jogging. About 20 minutes later, she passed them again, and they said that everything seemed normal. There were no signs of distress or anyone following her. And then, just before 11 a.m., another neighbour, while reversing out of their driveway, saw Rachel jogging down the road, and they paused to let her pass. She appeared to be heading home, or she was only 200 yards away from the front door. Despite being so close, there is no evidence that she ever reached home. It's here, within these last 200 yards, that Rachel seems to have vanished. In the early stages of this investigation, authorities suspected that Rachel had likely been taken by someone familiar to her. She might have paused to talk to someone she knew, or willingly entered a car to continue a conversation. This was her hometown, where she had many acquaintances after all. There were no signs of foul play or a struggle. Investigators began by scrutinizing those closest to Rachel, methodically working to eliminate them as suspects. Greg and all of Rachel's family members were subjected to polygraph tests. Everyone was cleared. At the time of Rachel's disappearance, witnesses in the area reported seeing an unidentified man driving a late model Chevrolet Camaro or Pontiac Trans Am, described as either white or blue, with distinctive white or black stripes on the hood and trunk. The driver was said to be in his late teens or early 20s, with slicked back dark hair and a dark complexion, possibly of Hispanic descent. investigators have gathered 3 composite sketches of the man based on different witness accounts. While the overall impression of the man is consistent across all sketches, they each depict distinctly different individuals, essentially generic men with dark hair. As a result, these sketches have proven to be of limited value. Several witnesses reported seeing the man driving along the Nevada Trail, the road where the Cookes lived, before turning south onto Nick's Trail. Some also claimed there were 2 men in the car rather than just one. Additionally, a white pickup truck with a broad dark stripe along its lower side was spotted driving around the North Lake subdivision on the same day. Witnesses mentioned that both the sports car and the truck, though accounts seemed somewhat confused, allegedly stopped along the road to speak with the jogger, believed to be Rachel, around the time that she went missing. Investigators released this information to the public, hoping it would encourage more people to come forward, and a significant number of tips followed. According to the Charlie Project, one of the unidentified men voluntarily came forward a week later and was cleared of any involvement in the case. It's not clear if this refers to the same individual, but 2 young boys also admitted they'd been skipping school that day and were driving around aimlessly in a very similar looking car. While their behaviour might have appeared suspicious, it was due to skipping school and not any connection to Rachel's disappearance. Police verified their account and they were also cleared of suspicion. For a time, the investigators concentrated heavily on the possibility of a Hispanic connection in this case. Rachel's family mentioned that over the break, Rachel had remarked about workers, subcontractors in the area, staring at her, making comments during her jogs. Many of these workers were Hispanic, and a significant number were also undocumented, which complicates investigations. Without an official list of workers to interview, given that undocumented individuals are unlikely to voluntarily come forward for the fear of drawing attention to their immigration status, it created a difficult challenge for investigators. despite pursuing this angle, police still strongly believe that Rachel likely knew her abductor, largely due to the lack of any obvious signs of a struggle. There was a point where investigators shifted their focus back to Rachel's ex-boyfriend, who was reportedly struggling to move on from their relationship. This is a boyfriend before Greg. His name has never been made public, and he was never officially named as a suspect. He wasn't even considered a person of interest at the time. However, it is said that their relationship had been somewhat volatile. They had crossed paths at a party when Rachel was back in town, which apparently led to an argument. During that encounter, the ex-boyfriend confessed that he was still in love with her and had pleaded for her to return to him. But Rachel had happily moved on with Greg, making a reconciliation with this ex-boyfriend out of the question. Her mother recounted that an incident when this ex-boyfriend showed up at their front door happened one night at around 3 a.m. They threatened to call the sheriff to get him to leave. Given the disappearance, this behavior of the ex appeared more suspicious. But in a different context, it could have just been seen as a teenager grappling with intense emotions and impulsive behavior, which is often fueled by inexperience and poor judgment, especially after drinking. Well, since investigators appeared to move on from the ex-boyfriend relatively quickly, it's reasonable to assume he may have had a solid alibi for the time of Rachel's disappearance. But we lack further information to confirm this. Consequently, her case would hit a standstill over the next few years. Very sadly, having put immense strain on Rachel's parents' marriage, Robert and Janet ended up getting divorced. They remained united in the search for Rachel. Robert became consumed with trying to find his daughter, whilst Janet sought a way to find closure. It wasn't until 2006 that a notable development unfolded in the case. A task force was assembled to tackle the investigation, but it was soon disbanded, leaving the responsibility of managing all the files in the hands of a single individual. One day this individual received a call from an inmate, convicted murderer Michael Keith Moore, who confessed on the spot to abducting and murdering Rachel. He claimed he disposed Rachel's remains in Matagorda Bay, which was 180 miles and 3-hour drive to the south. He was serving a series of 4 consecutive life sentences following a lengthy criminal history that had begun in 1993. Eager to have a breakthrough in the case, authorities were initially too eager to accept his version of events. It conveniently aligned with his established pattern of violence against women. He had little to gain from a false confession, leading them to pursue a plea bargain. In this agreement, he would plead guilty to Rachel's murder and would guide investigators to the supposed location of her body, as well as the site where he buried her jewellery and personal belongings. However, he later recanted his admission in court, pleading not guilty, claiming he had fabricated the story in exchange for special privileges. Despite his not guilty plea, investigators focused on building a case against him, convinced of his guilt. They believed that if the case went to trial, he could potentially face the death penalty, something they had sought to avoid with the original plea bargain. However, their efforts to strengthen the case never progressed as hoped. Nowadays, investigators lean towards the view that his confession was likely fabricated, perhaps motivated by a desire for attention while serving 4 life sentences in prison. Over the years, police diligently pursued numerous leads, amassing a total of over 1,700. They aimed to follow up each one. In 2016, a new sheriff, Robert Jody, took charge of Rachel's case. He assembled a team of retired homicide detectives to re-examine the investigation from the ground up. A new cold case unit was established, leading them to compile a list of 100 persons of interest. They embarked on the process of re-interviewing everyone who had been questioned during the initial investigation. Investigators made every effort in their reinvestigation, exploring every lead, meticulously reviewing previous interviews. And then in April of 2018, there was a significant breakthrough, seemingly out of nowhere. Officials announced they had located a car linked to Rachel's disappearance, the very same vehicle reported to have been seen driving in the area when she went missing. And they confirmed it was a 1998 white Pontiac Trans Am that was found in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This vehicle was promptly transported back to Williamson County, where FBI forensic analysts began collecting evidence. Although authorities have not disclosed the person's identity or the car's owner, it's likely that the police possess that information. Preliminary testing revealed traces of blood on an item found in the passenger floorboard and the passenger door molding. But it was then announced that the full results of this testing would never be released to the public in order to protect the integrity of the investigation. At the same time, there were several significant excavations in the area, still in the search for Rachel. One took place in June of 2017, prompted by another tip, when the Williamson County Sheriff's Office and the FBI dug a 15 by 20 foot area approximately 5 miles north of Liberty Hill. But unfortunately they found no evidence. Then in December of 2018, there was another dig that occurred in a field near the intersection of county roads and Texas in Georgetown. Once again, officials did not reveal whether any noteworthy discoveries were made. A spokeswoman indicated that they would be pursuing other leads in the case, which suggests that no substantial findings had emerged. Investigators remain resolute in their pursuit of this case. They say that they are determined to provide answers for Rachel's loved ones. In January of 2021, they announced that they were seeking information about an individual who lived in Georgetown area in 2002. Someone reported to have travelled to multiple cities across Texas. This person has been described as an associate of Rachel's during her time in Georgetown and is known to have been involved in the cattle or horse industry. It is believed that he may have mentioned something to an acquaintance regarding Rachel's disappearance. Notably, he spoke in the third person, seemingly trying to distance himself from any actual involvement. Whatever was said raised enough suspicion that the acquaintance subsequently provided a tip to the police, prompting investigators to follow up on it. This seems to be the last significant update in Rachel's case. While it remains unclear whether the person in question has been located, it is evident that investigators are not giving up on Rachel anytime soon. The Williamson County Sheriff's Office and the FBI are offering a reward of up to $100,000 for any information leading to Rachel's whereabouts. I will leave the Williamson County Sheriff's Office contact details in the description box below the video. If you have any information that could assist investigators, please get in touch. If you live in Georgetown or the surrounding areas, please share this video. Help raise awareness about Rachel's case. Let's hope that it won't be long before there is a break in disappearance. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you have any thoughts or opinions